Okay, folks, we're going to go ahead and get started. The name of this talk is SIEMple Technology, and here's Bill.
Hi, everyone. Just out of curiosity, is anyone planning or working through setting up a SIEM in their environment? All right, good. Start off with, as I said, my name is Bill Davison. I go by Polar Bill on Twitter. Feel free to follow me. I'm a security engineer at ISC Squared, and of course they want me to say this talk, my comments are, and my suggestions are mine, not part of ISC Squared. I'm also a board member on Sunco Florida Linux group. Been around for 10, 15 years at minimum. I volunteered at both BSides Tampa, and I have to make a quick plug for them. 2016, it's actually going to be on a cruise ship. Yes. Only one stop to Cozumel. CFP opened up yesterday, and if you get accepted, that's a free cruise for you and another person. So it's not too bad. We're hoping to get a lot of people there. Anyways, I also foster dogs through the Florida Boxer Rescue. Up there in the corner, you can see Gnarly in the right, and Luna, who actually passed away on Friday. They were both bonded pair. So anyways, I broke down this talk. With 20 minutes, you can't go in too deep, so it is a low-tech talk. And it broke into 3 sections. Researching the options that you need, implementing it in your environment, and basically managing your SIEM and maintaining your goals. I wrote this talk specifically because I was handed a SIEM in one of my previous jobs and had nowhere to go. Scoured SANS, when many other places, saw a lot of how not to's, but not a really good roadmap on how to set up a SIEM in your environment. So that's my goal here, is to give you a golden brick road. You are going to have issues along the way, but at least we'll give you a good path to follow. All right, to begin with, what is a SIEM? Of course, it's a security information event management. Well, what does that mean? A SIEM is a very versatile tool. Mainly for me, it's log collection, log correlation, alerting on the logs, and retaining those logs. It can do many other things too, though. A lot of them do performance metrics, network, process, or file integrity monitoring, and all those usually let you query the logs too if you're looking for other specific things. Now, when you're building a SIEM, you need to not just set it up in your environment. You need to know what value you're trying to create by getting it. Is it you're trying to get faster instant response by being alerted with key issues, or just being able to query centralization of all the logs in your environment? If you're trying to go for visibility, for such as yourself, again, are you trying to see key values in your environment, or for upper management, are they getting dashboards out of it and relevant metrics? And truthfully, are you trying to save money and time for this? In many ways, SIEM can help you automate some of those SOC processes that are very manual, and it can help maximize productivity, while hopefully not firing any guys in the process. All right, so we all hate it, but let's get compliance out of the way. A few of them do have certain logging requirements, and it is a good justification for a larger budget. PCI and HIPAA, in particular, PCI has 1 year retention. HIPAA, depending on your state, has 6 or 7 years you have to retain those logs. That's something you'll want to focus in when you're looking at your SIEM, whichever choice. And if you do deal a lot with compliance, I want to make a quick plug. UCF has a website, the Common Controls Hub. If you're an ISC Squared member, they give you a free demo account, and they break down a lot of the controls per compliance and thousands of different compliance options. It's a pretty nice, handy tool. Now, when we're talking about SIEM, there's a few other questions, of course. This isn't going to be just a blinky box. It's going to require man hours in your environment. I'm glad I got a laugh out of that one. Now, SIEM itself is only as good as it's configured for your environment. If you don't have a good staff to run it, internal might not be your best option. Looking at a hybrid option where it's externally managed within your environment or complete cloud might make a better choice for you because they have the expertise in place. You do miss stuff because at the end of the day, they're looking at their bottom line, but it's another option to get you started and get you going. And I didn't mention it yet, but SIEM can be either software, it can be run as an appliance, or it can be run as a virtual machine. Now, I'm assuming here most of us are the blue team trying to get stuff set up, but a SIEM doesn't have to be just for us. Help desk will surely like to know it for things such as account lockouts and where they are being happened and who it's being happened to. Your network team would like to know where the saturation point issues are. Development would probably like to be alerted on error logs quicker so they can respond to those quicker. Auditing, of course, would like all the historical transactions in one place to make their job easier. And the web department will probably want to look at performance metrics and also web logs in the same aspect. Now, I've broken it down into a couple different arbitrary sections here. The first one is network logs. You can pull lots of interesting information from firewalls. You can look at what's blocked and what's being allowed in your environment. With intrusion detection prevention, you can also see all that too. And with Netflow data, you can see exactly what's being happened, what congestion's in your network, and further detail on what's being processed through WAFs. You can see what access URLs are being gone, what URLs are being processed, and also any port scans or SQL attempts on your network. In server category here, web requests is good to know what pages people are trying to pull from your websites. DNS is good to know for what websites they're being your end users are accessing. Your authentication database is LDAP, AD. You'll know who's trying to break in, who keeps fat fingering their passwords all the time. File integrity can show you when things change in your environment, and things such as EMET can also show you any application changes or any odd issues that might occur. Part of that on end users, EMET once again can show you anytime any weird applications occur. This might be benign, might not, but still good to know in your environment. Sysmon can tell you what processes are trying to reach out and when they're being started. Local firewall, even if you set it up for allow any, can still tell you it went to this website or these went into that, which will be decent logging. And it's also good to know what applications are installed, what events are occurring on those, and you can even go as far as getting PowerShell command line, what PowerShell commands were run on those systems. Security logs is the last section here for this. And we all know AV is dead, but there is still some value in endpoint protection. To begin with, you can see some of the well-known malware when that gets installed. You can also see when someone just plugs in a random thumb drive they found off the ground. Beyond that, you can also get some more data off application whitelisting systems. Your vulnerability scanners can tell you which systems have a higher chance of being broken into, have a higher priority for alerting, and honeypots can show you, in particular internal honeypots in this case, can show you any curious users sniffing around in your environment. So one of the big things about the SIEM is not just getting those logs, but correlating them here. We're all understaffed, we're all overworked. This will help you be alerted on the more important things in your environment. A couple of the most basic ones are 2 successful login attempts from the same user in 2 different countries and within the same day or same hour. It's highly unlikely that's actually going to happen in real life, and you probably should be alerted on. Some of the other things are a good number of failed attempts trying to access, SSH trying to access a server with then a followed-up successful attempt from that same IP address. Probably an issue there. Last but not least, a little more difficult, but you can also do some things such as if you see an Nmap scan on your environment or SQL injection, and then you see a large amount of traffic leaving your environment towards that same place, that's another thing you can be alerted on. Now, we already spoke about man hours here. There's a bit more than that you also need to be aware of. Most enterprise SIEMs will charge you on events per second, so they'll be broken down into tiers. This data isn't completely, there is no perfect formula for your environment because the logging changes for every single system, but you can get some things, you can figure that out doing a proof of concept, which I'll speak about later. As part of those events per second, you also need to know not just what's coming in, but also which ones you need to process, which ones you need to correlate. Some of them you might just need to log and store away without doing anything for them for auditing purposes. And as I mentioned earlier with HIPAA, how long do you want to store them? Part of that also, too, is that a SIEM it'll process the logs, but it won't save all the metadata from the logs for the lifespan. Querying those logs at that point, it's really slow and really cumbersome. Most of them usually sit somewhere between a week and a month, depending on what processing power it comes with. Knowing how quickly you'll need to pull data from X amount of months ago or days ago is something useful to know in your environment. So, now we've got a list of things we want to do. We've spoken to other departments, what we want to see. As we said, let's make the list. And let's prioritize this list. It's got to be important. Let's start off with creating the top 5 or 10 things in your environment that you want to log. Essentially, you don't want to be like Sisyphus, pushing a log up a hill, having it roll back down, and feel like you're getting nowhere. At the end of the day, this list is going to change as you work on stuff, but you want to break it down to small, bite-sized things you can accomplish and get done effectively. Beyond that, once you get all that, you need to make your decision on what SIEM works in your environment. Wikipedia has a list of SIEMs, but they don't really break down the full list of features. So truthfully, the better option would be speaking with friends and other coworkers or colleagues in your environment. There are some pretty decent VARs out there that could actually help you instead of sell you the priciest thing. You can run a POC in your environment, which I would highly suggest if you have any esoteric or odd devices that you want to make sure get logged properly or get parsed properly in your environment. And at the end of the day, it's a roll of the dice. There's not much you can do about that because to get a SIEM going as well as you want, it is going to take multiple months generally, but most of them will do what you need. Hopefully you'll get the better one that works well in your environment. All right. So now we know what we want. How do we get that done? First off, as far as implementing, as I suggested with Sisyphus' comment earlier, you want to do phase approaches. Now, this could be the most critical systems in your environment. This can be the ones that have compliance requirements. This could be the least amount of visibility in your network that you'd like to see, or the ones that aren't being logged and parsed properly, so you require either getting a VAR in there or spending a lot of time to parse it properly so you can see in your environment. Now, as far as collecting logs, the first part should be obvious. If you can, do TLS. If that's not an option, go for TCP. If you have nothing else, go for UDP. Yeah, we all know the UDP joke, but I tell you, you would never get it. So, as far as Unix systems, they pretty much have syslog, some type of syslog variant, pretty well covered, with our syslog, preferably syslog NG or syslog that just does UDP. The Windows environment, you really need to talk to your SIEM provider on what they suggest you do. There are ones that have agents you install on your system that push data, and there are also ones that are agentless that usually do a WMI query, or maybe with Windows 10 they might start doing some type of SSH options. There's a pros and cons for each. You kind of need to know for your environment. I know a lot of people don't like logs or like another agent on their systems, but there are some benefits and more information you can get real time from it compared to pulling them from a system. Now, as far as network gear is concerned, most of them, depending on what they do, either syslog or flow data will cover what they need. But there are, or SNMP too, which I always tend to forget. And some of them do have some proprietary options, but you've already covered those with your POC earlier. Now here's the most important slide for me. Tweak, alter, test, and some more tweaking. This is one slide of my talk. This is going to be most of your time setting this up in your environment. The fact is, you're going to realize you're not logging certain things, you're logging other things you don't care about, and you're going to have to test something out, try and break it into your environment, have a red team come out, do a pen test, recreate what you're being alerted on, and making sure they're being alerted properly for everything. This will take a while, but that's why I again suggest phase approaches so you can test a couple things. The goal for this, for your SIEM, is that it's not going to cry wolf, it's not going to yell at you when someone fat fingers a password once in an AD environment. It doesn't nag you repeatedly. In worst case, it doesn't do nothing. What you want your SIEM to do essentially is to make your life easier. You want to provide actionable alerts. You can have it send reports, but there's no need to send those to you immediately when they happen. You can have those weekly or monthly if you know you're not going to take action on those right away. Now, after you go through the first phase or multiple phases of your approach, we'll get to managing and maintaining it. Now, we spoke about having other departments join in so they can get logs. It is a good idea to have a liaison in each department, letting you know anytime there's any downtime, any upgrades, or any changes of sorts. That prevents them from getting the alerts and prevents you from getting the alerts, not knowing what's happening in the environment. It's always good to be proactive. A SIEM, of course, will need to be updated. Not only will a SIEM need to be updated, probably the platform will be on, and usually there's also separate parsing rules for different logging. Each of those can change along in your environment, and you'll want to know that as it's coming in and also be aware of it. If a parsing changes something specific in your environment, it might just start alerting you 1,000 times just because of the way it's being seen currently. Now, another important thing here is the security integrity of these logs. If you're doing it for incident response, you need to make sure your logs are intact and correct and they haven't been altered. You want non-repudiation on all your logs. A lot of enterprise will usually do an MD5 with not fingerprinting, and I can't even think of the term right now. They'll do an MD5 hash with some other type of something else to prevent it not going through the environment. You want to harden your SIEMs to prevent any issues like that because this is where all your logs are going into. You don't want someone breaking into this because then it kind of defeats the purpose of it. And what's the last one? Of course, you want to keep your logs synced as far as time is concerned. If they're all showing at different times, it's going to make your job harder. Usually you want to go from the same NTP server and usually also have them all in the same time zone, whether that's Zulu time or if you're a smaller environment where all is one time zone, you can all go off the East Coast in my case. Beyond that, you'll also want to do periodic reviews of your environment. You want to basically make sure that everything is coming in properly on the SIEM. You want to make sure everything's being seen, and you want to just make sure essentially nothing is being missed in your environment. And above all, as we spoke about the value earlier, are you getting the value you expected out of it? If not, are you going to want to spend more time or money with VARs to get it going, or is it worth looking into another SIEM? Now to wrap up here, to begin with, you want to find the solution that fits your needs and your environment. You want to start sending logs, and then you want to keep it up to date and maintain it in your environment. I know I spoke a little bit quickly here, so I didn't mention it earlier, but at the beginning of the slide, github.com/polarbill. Later this week, we'll have all these slides plus some other technical documents you can reference to dive in a little bit further. And there's a few people I like to thank for this talk. Russell, somewhere in the back, he's been my mentor. He's been invaluable helping me through this whole process. My wife Andrea, who drove me at 3:30 in the morning to get to my plane on time today, and also just letting me spend all time diving in, kind of ignoring her just to get all this done. I'd like to thank BSides Las Vegas for doing Proving Grounds, because it's definitely helped me step out here and get an environment. And I'd like to thank all you guys for coming out for this talk. Are there any other questions?
When it comes to correlation, what is, I guess, your recommended way to coming up with one use case for what you call a correlate? So the red team go, okay, with you guys.
Red team works well, and a couple of my cases, because I had, as I mentioned earlier, when I started, I used an external VAR, and they kind of just sent me a list. Yeah. Here's the stuff we go for. I'm like, all right, I'll save that for when my next company. So yeah, and essentially if you do have red team a pen test, they're going to hopefully show you afterwards, here's how we broke in, and then you can correlate to, okay, how can we make the SIEM and alert us in that when those events occur.
What are your experiences between having multiple SIEMs or one small? We went through a lot of different systems. Some SIEMs are good at one thing, really good at another. So what are your thoughts and experiences in that area?
I've never ran two at the same time. As you said, some are good at others, and they're all different. Most of them can get what the job you need done. It's just how much time you can put into it. But unless you have completely separate environments, I wouldn't feel comfortable having two SIEMs because they wouldn't really talk to each other properly for some of the correlation. You're probably missing some of the alerting. All right. If that is it, I do thank you for this talk.